guys, so this is part 2 of my January book haul. I will link part 1 down in the description box, which I just filmed and was books that were all sent to me by the publishers. This video, on the other hand, are all books I bought myself, minus one which was a gift from a friend. So I will start with that one, shall I? And that book is this absolutely stunning edition of Gabriel Garcia Marquez 100 Years of Solitude. Now this was a gift from my wonderful friend Cynthia over at C.A. Dubois here on YouTube. If you're not subscribed to her, I don't know really what you're doing with your time because it doesn't sound very productive to me. I took Cynthia to see Snow White at the ballet and she gave me this gorgeous book for my Christmas, and I'm so incredibly excited to read it because I have never read any Gabriel Garcia Marquez. I know, shock horror, and what better way to read it but in this beautiful edition. Is a magic realism book. It was first published in the 1960s. It is a Latin American novel, and I have read the first 20 pages and do really like what I've read so far, although I need to finish off a couple of books before I can get into it properly. And this is published by Penguin Viking. I then have a book I picked up in a charity shop when I was visiting my granny, and that is The Magician's Guild by Trudy Canavan. This is the first of the Black Magician trilogy, a fantasy series. It's about £1.50, and I've seen this book kind of in the periphery of my vision for years now and just thought, oh well, it's so cheap, I may as well pick it up and give it a shot, because like I said, I'm trying to read more fantasy this year, especially like epic high fantasy. And this is about an untrained magician who is on the loose, fleeing from the Magician's Guild, and they're kind of hunting her down. I then have 2 books I bought specifically for an up and coming read along. Jen over at Jen V Campbell is planning a Peter Pan read along, and I've never read Peter Pan, at least the originals. I may have read a children's version when I was little, I think, but I want to read the originals as an adult, so I picked up all of J.M. Barrie's Peter Pan in Oxford World Classics editions. First I have Peter Pan in Kensington Gardens and Peter and Wendy by J.M. Barrie. I think Peter Pan in Kensington Gardens comes first, and then Peter and Wendy is kind of the prose version of the original play, which is Peter Pan. And this is Peter Pan and Other Plays by J.M. Barrie. So the other plays are The Admirable Crichton, When Wendy Grew Up, What Every Woman Knows, and Mary Rose. I'm not sure if all of them are about the characters from Peter Pan. I'm presuming When Wendy Grew Up is, but I'll be intrigued to find out. So I feel like I'm covered on the Peter Pan front for now, and hopefully these are as good as Jen says they are. I then have a graphic novel which I've already read, loved it, 5 out of 5 stars, and that is Take It As a Compliment by Maria Stoyan. And this is an absolutely beautiful yet harrowing graphic novel which takes the testimonies of people who've either been like sexually assaulted or like sexually abused or verbally assaulted in a sexual manner. All of that horrendous stuff that happens on an everyday basis, and depicts each little story with a graphic novel. So there's some variety of styles in here, although all by the same artist. This is one, this is one, this is one, this is one, and there's 20 stories in all. Absolutely wonderful book. Obviously if you yourself have experienced some sort of sexual abuse that still affects you today, then you'll have to consider yourself whether this book's going to be for you. But I found it incredibly moving. I love this format to depict these stories. It made it very visceral, and I love the author's style. I think her artwork is a sort of cross between that of Marjane Satrapi and Isabel Greenberg, and it's so gorgeous. And if she has more books, I'm going to find them because I want them. And all in all, a graphic novel I would recommend to everybody, unless you strongly feel that it may trigger you, obviously. But another non-fiction graphic novel, but a slightly different one, is Lost in Translation, an illustrated compendium of untranslatable words from around the world by Ella Frances Sanders. Pretty much sums it up in the subtitle there, but it takes words from different languages that cannot be translated into an English word. For example, we have here paleg, which is apparently a Norwegian word, which translates as anything and everything you can put in a slice of bread. So any kind of sandwich filling, absolutely anything, unspecific. And it always has a little bit of text here, the word, an illustration to kind of depict the word, like this. So a gorgeous way to look at the diversity of language, and very interesting graphic novel-esque book. But I'm really looking forward to getting all the way through. But the graphic novels don't end there. We have one more graphic novel-esque book. This one is probably better described as a very heavily illustrated story, and that is Raven Girl by Audrey Niffenegger. It's almost like an adult's picture book. It's got lots of illustrations. The text is laid out absolutely stunningly. There's some more illustrations. Just all these gorgeous images of ravens, and essentially it is about a girl trapped in a raven's body. Her mother was a raven and her father was a human. So interesting, obviously a fantastical story there, and what looks like to be quite a dark story, so I'm intrigued to read this one. I've never read any of Audrey Niffenegger's books, let alone her gorgeously illustrated books like that. I then have two books which I picked up from an independent publisher. I ordered these just before New Year and they took a few weeks to get to me, but they did come from America, and they're from Le Figue Press, and these are them both here. They publish very experimental writing. The first one is The Evolutionary Revolution, which I heard about on Jen's channel, and it's by Lily Huang, and it's like a strange mixture of lyrical prose and flash fiction and all of that kind of stuff. I'm honestly not terribly sure what it's about, but it just sounded incredibly interesting when Jen talked about it. Not only that, but are these not the most interestingly published books? Like these really slim, tall bindings. So interesting. I really think it will be an interesting thing to read. But then the other one I picked up from them when I was on their website, they had, I forgot to say, they had a 50% off sale, so I wanted to try some of their stuff, and that's why I got these two. So everything was 50% off just after Christmas. And this is Things to Do with Your Mouth by Livia Victor, and this is a collection of poetry. There are what looks like in here kind of prose poetry, short story, flash fiction-esque things, but it is predominantly poetry and it's meant to be poetry. And I read the extract from this and just thought it sounded very beautiful and wanted to give the whole collection a try. But whilst we're on the topic of books Jen made me buy, I know, every book haul, right? There's two more here that I heard about first on her channel, so thought I'd quickly chuck them in here. First one is Some 40 Tales from the Afterlives. These are tiny short stories about the afterlife. Really interesting little cover. It's got, can you see that? It's got like a little cutout in the door. Tiny book, will not take long to get through at all. And then I have a collection of poetry from Penned in the Margins, which are an indie publisher. And this is Beautiful Girls by Melissa Lee Houghton. Yeah, just one that got very high commendations from Jen. But last but not least is a non-fiction book, and that is The History of Sexuality, Volume 2 by Michel Foucault, The Use of Pleasure. Now this is, like I said, Volume 2. There are 3 books in this series. So there's The History of Sexuality 1, 2 and 3, all written by the philosopher Michel Foucault. I'm never sure if I'm quite pronouncing his name right, but let that not deter us. These are very famous books. The first one was kind of about sexuality during his time and just generally the philosophy of sexuality, and then he wrote the second 2 books in depth about sexuality in antiquity. So the second volume is about sexuality in Greece and the third volume is about sexuality in Rome. He was not an ancient historian. His books, however, are often used in discussions of sexuality in ancient history books and studies. A lot of his stuff is not necessarily still the popular view these days. There's a mixture there of stuff that is right and is wrong and people agree with and disagree with. But regardless of how accurate his studies are and whether they are still popular today, they are still constantly referenced today in ancient history books from the past few decades since this book was written. It's very difficult when I read a lot of ancient history, and although I've read bits of Michel Foucault, I've never read this entire book, and like I said, it's just referenced so much that I really felt like I should read it for myself, just to, although they usually contextualise what they're saying, I would really like to have read the original myself when so many people cite it. So yes, this is published by Penguin. But those are all the books I had to show you in this haul. Like I said, there's going to be one more haul. So look out for that haul, and until next time guys, happy reading. I'll see you all again soon. Bye!